Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 120. Sea Travel. The royal ship set out to sea. Compared to the last time they left Dongying, this ship was even more majestic and spacious. The ship was also equipped with the appropriate huge crossbows for sea battles, and had 3 decks. The main deck was grand, and a dense metal spur had been mounted on the prow. Dongying naval troops were scattered on every corner of the ship, and amidst the snow filling the sky, they unfurled the sails and turned them in the right direction. In less than a single session, the ship had already left the harbor of Dongying. But just in this coastal region, a snowstorm swept in from the north, whistling as it sped towards the open ocean. Heading out in such weather was truly not a good idea, especially when the royal ship was tangled up in the wind. Torrential rain and ice crystals shot towards the sails with a hwalla, and the sailors all let out loud shouts as they turned the ship in a different direction. Xiang Shu had just set foot on the boat for a bit and was heading up to the upper deck with Chen Xing when the royal ship careened. Chen Xing almost rolled off the steps. "What happened?" Xiang Shu shouted. "The heavens aren't letting us set out to sea," the head of the soldiers said. "We should turn back first." Xiang Shu said to Chen Xing, "You go into our rooms." With that, he turned, holding a compass in his hand, and he slid across the deck, even as the ship was swaying, to the prow of the boat. "Xiang Shu!" Chen Xing shouted. "Why don't we head back first? Hide yourself well." Xiang Shu shouted. The wind grew stronger and stronger, before the fierce wind, carrying small flakes of snow with it, came blowing into their faces. The sailors on the ship held tight onto the sails, trying to stabilize the direction it was heading in. For this kind of large boat to be pulled into a cluster of winds so close to shore after less than half a day of travel was truly unlucky. But as soon as the wind and the snow had come, there was no turning back. Xiang Shu turned, hooked his left arm around the deck, grabbed the rope with his right, and let out an infuriated roar. The sails that weighed some tens of thousands of jin changed direction under his tugging, and the royal ship, which had almost been swept into the center of the cluster of winds, skidded by the edge. It had come really close, but the area of effect of the windstorm was too large, and it viciously tugged the ship into it. Xiang Shu shouted, "Leave this to me. All of you go back to hide. Go find somewhere to strap yourself down in." As soon as the strong winds began to blow, it would inevitably sweep those that could not duck away in time into the ocean. The Dongying soldiers all escaped towards their own bunks, or clung onto the side of the ship where they stood, or untied the rope around their waists, tying themselves to the mast. As soon as the wild winds came, it was as if a giant was roaring. The sea raged for thousands of li, as though a deity had grabbed the sail with one hand, trying to forcefully rip it away from Xiang Shu's grasp. Xiang Shu let out an angered roar, gripping the ropes with all his might. With a turn, his feet skidded against the deck as he exerted all the power he had collected over the course of his life to steady the sail. "Xiang Shu!" Chen Xing slid across the inclined deck, grabbing Xiang Shu. "Go back!" Xiang Shu shouted. But Chen Xing hugged his waist firmly, and in a flash, golden light rose from the ground. Xiang Shu transformed into the protector martial god, tugging the ropes fiercely towards himself. The mast let out a loud sound as the sail turned once more, and the royal ship escaped the windstorm. "I am the Dao." Chen Xing. Xiang Shu's eyes shot open. In that windstorm, a dark visage appeared, turning into a face erupting with black qi. "Shu. I am the heavens and the earth dash." The icy cold rainstorm blew into their faces, and waves suddenly surged, soaking the two of them. Right after, a gentle light from a fire spread, blocking the wild winds and the ice splinters. Chen Xing held the phoenix feather in his hand, calling upon the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth to send out blazing flames against the ice splinters and windstorm that were coming at them. With a huge boom, the sacred fire contained in the phoenix feather slammed into the waves, immediately pushing the wild winds away. The visage that Chu had formed was scattered by that blow, and the royal ship escaped the windstorm. It sped, as swiftly as the wind, towards the open ocean. "Shu," Xiang Shu murmured. Chen Xing put the phoenix feather away and glanced at Xiang Shu, a little bit of horror evident in his gaze. The winds had stopped, and the two of them climbed onto the upper deck, only to see that in the distance, within the sea of black clouds, several pillars of light were piercing through, but the pitch-black sea stretched without end. That must be the site of the naval battles between Dongying, Ryukyu, Honshu, and even Fuzhang, Chen Xing murmured, which was why Chu was able to gather such powerful resentment in such a short amount of time. Now, he knows that we've set sail. He has always known, Xiang Shu said. He has always been watching you from within the darkness. There's no need to be afraid of him. With the onset of midwinter, no fishing boats were out on the endless sea. Only the royal ship sailed on under the vast sky, across the ocean, but no matter how majestic a creation, it was no more than a speck in the vast sea. After standing on the upper deck for a while, Chen Xing gradually began to understand what Chongming and Liu Ying had said, where time was like an ocean. The vastness of time and the expanse of the world were truly things that no mortal power could control. Reporting into the martial god, the leader of the soldiers on the boat said loudly, "We have already adjusted the direction of the ship according to the direction of the wind." As soon as the north wind started to blow, the sails that were pointing south immediately filled. Xiang Shu took a look at the arrow of the compass in his hand, nodded, and turned and went into the room with Chen Xing. The Dongying royal ship was the huge ship that King Onobayashi sailed to war with, and it was used to direct troop movements. The decks were split into 3 levels, upper, middle, and lower, and there were several meeting rooms for wartime use throughout. There was also a study as well as a place for the commanders to rest, and all of the sleeping chambers were located at the top level. Compared to the merchant ship that they had taken last time, there was naturally a world of difference between the two. Chen Xing was completely exhausted because Chu had caused them such a sudden bout of struggle as soon as they set sail. His entire body was soaking wet, and he sneezed. The guards came in to light a fire in the room, and it was only then that this cruel, chilly weather abated a little in the face of that warmth. "Originally, I thought that it was the heavens which weren't letting us set sail," Chen Xing said. "I never would have thought that it was him again." "Didn't you hear?" Xiang Shu said, sitting down to one side, his entire body dripping with water. "He is the heavens and the earth." Chen Xing was torn between crying and laughing. Xiang Shu glanced once more at Chen Xing as if he had nothing else on his mind, and said quietly, "It's not the first time that we're doing something against the will of the heavens. Even I Upiter couldn't do anything to me, so how could one measly Chu?" When Chen Xing heard that, he couldn't resist laughing loudly at that, and did so a few times. After that, he was so cold that he couldn't stop shivering. The two of them sat by the stove, warming themselves, and Xiang Shu began to undo his robes unbidden until he was completely bare. He didn't hide from Chen Xing either, instead putting the clothes to one side so they could dry. The movements of the royal ship grew a little more steady, and Chen Xing couldn't resist looking at him. His face was a little red. Although last night, Xiang Shu's calm demeanor had caused him to fundamentally redefine the etiquette that he had been taught, when he saw Xiang Shu's body in this moment, he still felt an urge that he couldn't avoid. He felt very embarrassed, but he couldn't bear to turn his gaze away. From outside came the sound of waves, and the ship gently rocked, pushing Chen Xing into Xiang Shu's arms. Xiang Shu asked a few questions in a quiet voice, and though Chen Xing was exhausted, he wasn't sleepy at all. He did his best to use words that he could accept to describe what he was thinking, before he then tugged at Xiang Shu's hand and pointed at his own body, gesturing towards the most comfortable spot in his own body. When he got halfway through, he was the one who got embarrassed first, and he turned around and began to laugh at himself without stopping. Xiang Shu couldn't resist laughing at that as well, and he spread his arms, lying down on the bed. Chen Xing felt that this was truly too embarrassing, but Xiangshu turned his head and looked into his eyes, saying earnestly, "Throughout my entire life, from when I was small until now, this has been the most comfortable, the happiest time of my life." Chen Xing, oh, is that right? Why do I feel like, you aren't very happy? You were focused solely on making sure I wasn't in pain. Actually you don't need to be too worried about me being in discomfort, go ahead and... Xiangshu demandingly pulled Chen Xing into his embrace, making him lie on his own shoulder as he held one of Chen Xing's hands, studying it, before he looked into his eyes. "Then I'm no longer going to care about whether you're willing or not," Xiangshu said with finality. "Right now won't do," Chen Xing hurriedly said. "I'll die. Let me rest for a bit." After several days that the royal ship spent sailing across the ocean, the weather cleared, and in the wintry night sky appeared a sea of stars that filled the sky, above that vast ocean that never froze over. At times, Xiangshu would go outside and check the compass before determining the direction of their voyage. And according to what Chongming had described, as long as they kept sailing towards the southern dipper, they would be able to find that person called Yuan Kun. The only thing they didn't know was how much longer it would be before they reached the island where this Yaogui resided. The sun rose and set, and there was nothing to do as they sailed through the sea. Aside from a few short, simple exchanges with the Dongying warriors, Xiangshu would go back to their room to be with Chen Xing. Chen Xing's clothes had been put away, and unless it was necessary, Xiangshu didn't take even a single step away from Chen Xing's side. As soon as the two of them had time, they would be completely true to themselves. In the beginning, Chen Xing just felt that it was very hard to be affectionate, but whenever and wherever, as long as Xiangshu was awake, he would try to seek pleasure with him. Even if Chen Xing couldn't do it anymore, he was still hugged in that embrace, constantly being intimate. "Give me back my clothes," Chen Xing said. "At least let me wear an inner robe." Xiangshu, however, felt very comfortable, and he stood by the window pouring water. He said to Chen Xing, "After we exchange vows in the Qinglu, our clothes will be confiscated for 3 months. You're not going to take the chance before then to get used to it." Wherever he went, Chen Xing could admire Xiangshu with no scruples, and he was very happy about that. But not wearing clothes made them no different from wild beasts, which truly violated his habits. "Give me some water to drink," Chen Xing said. Chen Xing originally thought that his own body wouldn't be able to handle such activity, but to his surprise, he found that every time after he did it with Xiangshu, he was no longer that tired. Every kind of thing. Chen Xing didn't know how to describe it anymore, what he felt these days when he was tangled up with Xiangshu all day. He only felt that the world was vast, and it was as if everything had been tossed to the back of his mind. In this moment, they had each other, and they didn't want to part for even a second. Chen Xing only wished to continue to be intertwined with him until even the world ended. He finally understood why some people, when they were in love, would pledge their love to each other across multiple lives, until the seas dried up and the mountains buckled. With the ocean as witness, with the Yin Mountains as witness, even if in his next life, or the life after that, as long as he was reincarnated back into this world, he would never be able to bear leaving Xiangshu. Can the Yin Mountains hear our words? Chen Xing hugged Xiangshu, finally growing accustomed to it. When the sun rose, Chen Xing lowered his head to kiss Xiangshu on the lips. "They will," Xiangshu said. Chen Xing continued, "The great ocean will know too." "It will," Xiangshu said. "I will never let you leave." The sea breeze blew across the deck. The clear sky, the white clouds, a pledge as high as the mountains and as deep as the ocean. The royal ship had been sailing for almost 3 months now, and winter had passed. Fish sparkling with light leapt out of the sea, and the northern wind changed directions to blow southeast. Spring had come. "The wind will still, and the snow will melt," Xiangshu said, kissing Chen Xing's fingers and looking into his eyes. Where you are is my place of solace. The Great Sea was the same as the last time they came. When waves beat against the ship, pushing the great vessel along, the two would be pushed into snuggling into each other. When the sea was calm, the surface of the ocean reflected the brilliant stars above like a mirror. On this still night, Chen Xing finally understood what Xiangshu had meant by the words "I'll take you away" that he had spoken back then. They would leave the Central Plains, heading west along the Silk Road to distant lands, to a place where no one recognized them anymore, to a different world, where there were no responsibilities that they had no choice but to shoulder, and where there was no pain and suffering, only each other. Just like on this still sea, on this lone royal ship, where they were far away from the hubbub and no one could disturb them anymore. It was as if they had arrived at the ends of the earth, Chen Xing thought as he laid on the bed, turning his head to look at Xiangshu by his side. Xiangshu had already fallen asleep. Chen Xing raised a hand to pull his arm over and put it under his own neck as a pillow, when he suddenly realized a problem. This night was so quiet, so still that it was abnormal. There was no wind, and there wasn't even the sound of talking outside. Chen Xing pushed open the window in their room and looked out. In the calm night, the sky and the ocean were the same color, and the royal ship had come to a stop in the center. The surface of the ocean reflected the brilliant river of stars. "Xiangshu," Chen Xing said, shaking Xiangshu. "The ship has stopped." Xiangshu only continued to lie there quietly, maintaining his sleeping position. Chen Xing immediately sensed that something was wrong. Even if Xiangshu was sleeping soundly, he still kept his guard up. As soon as there was something strange, he would immediately wake. How could he be this soundly asleep? "Xiangshu." Chen Xing sensed an unknown danger, but just at this moment, from somewhere in the room came a dim red glow. Chen Xing immediately climbed off the bed, only to see that it was coming from the glazed box on the shelf. When he opened it, inside was the feather that Chongming had given him. Chen Xing picked up the feather and faced towards the outside of the bedroom. With that, the red light grew a little stronger. He turned back to look at Xiangshu, trying once more to rouse him, yet Xiangshu did not wake up. Chen Xing thought, "Heavens! My clothes! Where did you stash my clothes?" Chen Xing was holding the phoenix feather in his hand, so he didn't feel cold at all. He peeped his head out from the room, completely naked. If an enemy came, then what would he? But the moment he stuck his head out, Chen Xing suddenly froze again. The sail was stopped in mid-air in a strange shape, and the guards on night watch were frozen in the act of climbing down the ladder for the changing of shifts. Ropes were hanging mid-swing through the air, drawing out an arc. Time had come to a halt. Surprised, Chen Xing climbed onto the deck with bare feet, studying his surroundings. There was no wind and no waves, and the southern dipper hung as a flash of brilliance in the vault of the heavens above. There was a young man standing at the head of the ship, clad entirely in black robes, his hair in disarray. "You?" Chen Xing narrowed his eyes, asking tentatively. The young man turned, and his eyes were covered with a strip of black cloth. His face was very pale, with the air of someone who was ill. His thin lips moved slightly, and a smile hung around the corners of his mouth as he said, "The blazing lamp shines for thousands of li, its brilliance like that of the bright day, the divine sword stands tall, unmoving as a mountain." Chen Xing, completely bare, stood easily in front of that young man. He knew that to Yaoguai, wearing clothes or going nude was not something they cared about, and neither did they have much of the propriety and embarrassment that humans had. Many Yaoguai, ever since they were born wild and free, and their bodies were one with the heavens and the earth. With Chongming, Lu Ying, and other similar great Yaoguai, they would only clothe themselves in front of humans to show that they were not like ordinary Yao or beasts, or to show that they were of the same kind. Since this blindfolded youth was also doing that, and was also Chongming's friend, then he must be some great Yaoguai with much power. Yuan Kun? Chen Xing asked. He saw the black cloth across his eyes, but he suspected whether or not he was actually blind. Yuan Kun reached out a hand towards Chen Xing, and the phoenix feather rose up from Chen Xing's palm, drifting gently into Yuan Kun's. He stowed it away. Chen Xing was just about to explain why they had come, only to see that Yuan Kun was holding the phoenix feather. It turned to sparks in his hand, dissipating into the air, before Yuan Kun then nodded. Chen Xing realized that Chongming had left some sort of a message in this feather, and it had been passed on to Yuan Kun, so he held his tongue. "You are very smart," Yuan Kun said, after tilting his head and thinking for a moment. Chen Xing was just about to walk forward when Yuan Kun turned, facing the vast ocean, his back to Chen Xing as he continued, "Great exorcist, originally you and I were enemies and not friends. The silence of all magic, at the heart of it, was a catastrophe caused by you humans, but now you are also trying to coerce Chongming." When Chen Xing heard this beginning, he thought, not good. Interacting with Liu Ying and Chongming for so long had caused him to forget one thing: not all the Yaoguai in this world were so easy to talk to. Originally, Yao and humans once stood at two ends of the extreme on the divine land. The world of the silence of all magic, which had existed for 300 years, had already caused the cruel battles between the exorcists and the Yao tribes to slowly fade from memory. But Yuan Kun and such great Yao that had remained dormant during this period had not forgotten. From his words, Chen Xing sensed a whiff of danger. Suddenly, Yuan Kun's words stopped as well, as if he too seemed to sense a threat. Xiang Shu appeared on deck. He too was completely bare, and he came to a stop behind Chen Xing. He had woken at some point, and upon finding that Chen Xing wasn't by his side, immediately came up to search. Chen Xing found this very strange. Yuan Kun had ordered for time to come to a stop, probably through the use of some unique and powerful magic, only letting Chen Xing out so that they could talk. Otherwise, Xiang Shu wouldn't have remained deeply asleep. Now, Xiang Shu had actually broken through Yuan Kun's magic on his own. How had Xiang Shu done it? Chen Xing raised an eyebrow at Xiang Shu, a query in his eyes. Xiang Shu gestured at him, meaning that he had come to take care of this. "Whether we are friends or enemies," Xiang Shu intoned, "why determine so now? The humans and the Yao tribes have the same goal, at least for now, which is to kill Chu. It will not be too late to settle any further grudges after that. Plus, there are often fights between members of the humans as well." Yuan Kun was silent, and he didn't continue speaking. Xiang Shu walked forward and took Chen Xing's hand, and the feeling of their skin touching calmed Chen Xing down. "Correct," Yuan Kun said in a quiet voice. "Who can speak truly of the matters of the future?" From a long time ago, Xiang Shu had clearly been on his guard against the Yao tribes. Chen Xing originally wanted to mediate between the two of them and make the atmosphere a little gentler, but Xiang Shu said easily, "Then, I'll have to ask you to assist us." Xiang Shu's tone was neither humble nor arrogant. To the two sides, this was a chance to cooperate on an equal level, and Chen Xing thought that thankfully Xiang Shu was here. Otherwise, if it was just himself, he wouldn't know how to deal with this fellow at all. With that, he also thought about what exactly Yuan Kun's true form was. Was he a dragon? Why else would he be living in the ocean? "Speak, Ba," Yuan Kun replied mildly. "What do you want to ask?" "The future," Xiang Shu said seriously. Chen Xing hadn't thought that as soon as Xiang Shu came, he would get straight to the point and cut right to the heart of the matter. "There is no future," Yuan Kun murmured. "In front of you two, there is only a vast ocean." And saying this, Yuan Kun walked towards Xiang Shu and Chen Xing, who were holding hands. "I think we can put on our clothes first," Chen Xing said. "I always think it feels a little weird." "Are you cold?" Xiang Shu asked, before pulling Chen Xing into his arms. "You humans always rigidly believe that destiny is fixed," Yuan Kun murmured, just like the stars on the horizon, but that is far from the case. Destiny is like the air bubbles that float up from deep within the ocean. There are hundreds of thousands of them, and only when the road forward becomes evident, the non-moment amongst these countless possibilities becomes reality. So, Xiang Shu said, what will happen in 3 years' time is something that cannot be determined right now. Yuan Kun didn't respond. He merely pulled his hand back. We require the Akala blade, Chen Xing said after thinking about it for a moment. Lu Ying said that you have the power to control the realm of dreams, and the power to travel through time. If you cannot see the future, then at least let us know how the Akala blade was forged. Yuan Kun's mouth twisted, revealing a small, mysterious smile. The creation of the Akala blade. Yuan Kun murmured. I imagine that in this life of yours, until the divine land itself is destroyed, none of you will be able to forge that same divine weapon again. Chen Xing suddenly thought of something else, and he asked, will the divine land be destroyed? Don't change the subject, Xiang Shu said quietly, before asking Yuan Kun, since there is no way to recreate the Akala blade, how are we to defeat Shu? Yuan Kun replied, that moment that you release the spiritual qi stored in the Dinghai pearl, you already lost your single chance to defeat Shu. Logically, from that night on, even if all magic returned and time turned back, defeat was already written in stone in your future. Xiang Shu. Yuan Kun said quietly, the you of back then, if it was not for that single wish, could have gotten rid of all of this by releasing the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth at the end, perishing together with the heart lamp. Chen Xing instantly understood. Everything that had happened in the past was perhaps the guidance of I Upiter, or perhaps destiny that had already been set in stone. After experiencing these 4 years of his life, he would have died, and after Xiang Shu killed Shu, the Dinghai pearl would have also broken. They would have exchanged their sacrifices for eternal peace for the human realm. But everything that had already been arranged for was interrupted by Xiang Shu, solely because Xiang Shu wished that Chen Xing could live on, and thus he muddled up their destinies. But it was also exactly because of this that they had lost the last chance to get rid of Shu. It has not been lost, Xiang Shu suddenly said. I Upiter told us that there is still a chance. A cunning smile lifted up the corners of Yuan Kun's mouth, and he replied, since that is the case, why not ask I Upiter? What are you asking me for? Xiang Shu frowned, and Chen Xing didn't know how to keep asking. But almost at the same time, Xiang Shu raised his arm, and on his forearm, the 9 symbols that Zuyan had bestowed on him glowed with a faint light. If there were truly no better options, Xiang Shu said solemnly, then Zuyan would not have returned these 9 symbols to me. In that instant, Yuan Kun's expression shifted, so minutely it was hard to sense. Yuan Kun reached out a hand, his palm hovering over Xiang Shu's forearm, slowly passing over those 9 symbols. The symbols seemed to change in color once more, turning from golden to blue, and they began to let out questing tongues of flames. Chen Xing, plus, I Upiter said that Shu is already dead, but it can also be said that it's not dead. We still have a chance. Is that right? Yuan Kun asked coldly. Perhaps Perhaps there is a chance, hidden amongst countless possibilities, but I haven't seen it. After a period of silence, Yuan Kun continued. Ah well. As for where it's hiding, you all can choose and go search for it yourselves. Since Zhongming has asked for this, I can send you 2 into dreams, to see that last year that you did not know of, that was forcefully cut short by the Dinghai pearl. This dream, however, will be very dangerous. You may completely vanish, or you may never come back. Only proceed once you have thought it over in full. And saying this, Yuan Kun turned and returned to the prow of the boat, leaving Xiang Shu and Chen Xing standing on the deck. Of course, you two can also decline, Yuan Kun said. Return to Jiangnan, and experience that road that you walked down once before. As for what will happen this time in the future, you will have no way to know, and no way to be informed of that. Xiangshu and Chen Xing exchanged a glance. Xiangshu originally wanted to say that he himself would go, and Chen Xing would wait here, but when they met each other's eyes, he sensed what Chen Xing wanted to say. He said, satisfied, if we're going, then we'll go together, and we'll come back together. Very good, Chen Xing smiled. It should always have been this way. The two of them linked hands, facing each other solemnly. Finally, Xiangshu sighed, glanced at Yuan Kun, and said, if this was before, I wouldn't have said that. Chen Xing hugged Xiangshu's waist, leaning against his chest, and the two of them quietly embraced each other in the frozen time. Xiangshu then quietly said, I feel like that bastard's up to no good. Chen Xing replied, but I trust Chongming. He wouldn't have lied to us. Xiangshu glanced at Yuan Kun. In reality, they didn't have any other choice at the moment, and after thinking about it, he said, can you tell what he is? Chen Xing had been thinking about this question for a while now. Was Yuan Kun a dragon? He didn't seem like one. What great Yaoguai in this world lived in the sea? Dimly, he thought of a possibility. You've decided? Yuan Kun said mildly. Xiangshu held Chen Xing's hand tightly, saying, we've decided. Yuan Kun was silent for a moment, before he then raised a hand and undid his blindfold, revealing a pair of eyes, one gold, one silver, shining with the flowing passage of time. The human realm will not be you humans' realm forever, Yuan Kun murmured. But it will not be too late in the future to settle this old feud between Yao and humans. Ah well, since things are like this, what's the harm in helping you all once? Remember, as soon as the dream begins, everyone will be drawn in. In the next moment, the black robes that Yuan Kun was clad in fluttered, turning into billows that circled the royal ship, before then taking form in the air. Floating above was a swimming fish that stretched a good 20 zhang in length, surveying this tiny royal ship like a huge whale. Its 12 fins waved, and 2 rows of glowing, rotating eyes appeared on its head. Skyrocketing on the wind for 90,000 li. Kun. Dreams are reality. The Kun King boomed as it opened its mouth in the midst of that hurricane. Dreams are the future. Xiangshu hugged Chen Xing tightly in his embrace, and Chen Xing lit up the heart lamp. In these wild winds and this dim illumination, their bodies glowed with a powerful light. The huge Kun's 18 eyes turned at once and let off a strong glow, and the world darkened with that, before a bright light suddenly shone. So, from tomorrow on, don't be afraid that I'll die anymore, okay? Stay with me, and let's finish this journey, and I'll forever remember, that in this world, there was someone who cared so much about me he would call in all of his friends and scatter away all of his family fortune, just so I can keep living, and stay by my side. Chen Xing's voice echoed between the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, Xiangshu's lower, rich voice sounded. I will also remember. The glow slowly shrank, gathering in front of the two of them. That in this world, there was someone who was willing to burn up all of his mortal and immortal souls just to become a blazing lamp that shines gloriously upon this world. The light shrank, before it completely vanished. Chen Xing and Xiangshu were standing in a garden, and the two of them stared at each other dumbly. They had each regained their clothing. Xiangshu lowered his head doubtfully to look. Xiangshu. Chen Xing immediately let out a loud shout and hugged him. Xiangshu unconsciously returned the embrace, his eyes filled with shock. Xing. Xiangshu murmured. Is that you? Yes, it's me. Chen Xing realized that they had actually returned together. Was this a dream? Why was everything so realistic? He had already experienced returning 3 years ago to the prison, and he quickly accepted things for what they were. With that, he stroked Xiangshu's face again, saying, Heavens, when is this? The night before the Battle of the Fei River. Both of us came back. No, Xiangshu murmured. This is only a dream that fellow called Yuan Kun made for us. Chen Xing turned to look at the plants in the garden. He stroked them to confirm that they were real, they were tangible. He then pinched his own arm. Speechless, Xiangshu grabbed his hand, saying, "Stop playing around. What are we supposed to do now?" Chen Xing hesitated, no words coming to mind, before he suddenly thought of the Akala blade. He had Xiangshu turn, saying, "Let me see." Chen Xing examined the Akala blade. The weapon was still here. This dream was that realistic? Since the dream is real, Chen Xing said, this is what Yuan Kun reminded us of at the end. We cannot treat it as a dream. We must face it seriously. Xiangshu was still a little at a loss for what to do, and he raised his head to look towards the night sky. How much longer do you two need to prepare? Xian came over. The two of them looked at Xian at the same time. Even Xian appeared so realistic, and Chen Xing had a vague feeling of ill luck. Xiangshu waved his hand, sending Xian away, before he said to Chen Xing, "Let's follow him and go take a look." Wait a moment. Chen Xing remembered another thing, and he tugged Xiangshu along as he trotted to his own room. He pushed the door open, only to see that, as expected, the shell bracelet that Xiangshu had given him was on the pillow. Xiangshu's face immediately turned red. "Ah! It's here, as expected," Chen Xing said gleefully. He put it on, then pulled out his own bracelet and put it on Xiangshu. Xiangshu turned his wrist, then studied Chen Xing's eyes, before quietly letting out an N. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 121. Dream of Returning. The first day of the second lunar month. Zhu Su had left, and the Qin and Jin armies had both assembled on the banks of Fei River. Xian, Wang Zizi, and some others were hurriedly leading civil servants to escape the city at the moment. Xiangshu was sitting on one side of the cart, while Xie Dayun took the reins and drove them out of Shaoyang city in a flurry. Arriving at the intersection, everyone got off one after another and kowtowed 3 times facing Shaoyang city in memorial to the fallen patriots who had stayed behind to set the city ablaze. "We have to go," said Xiangshu to Xian and the rest as he gazed into the distance. Chen Xing and Xiangshu stood on one side. Wang Zizi gave them his horse and said, "Take care. Until we meet again later in Jiankang." Everything in this dream realm seemed so real that even Xie Dayun had tears in her eyes. She earnestly said, "I'll leave young Shifu Xiaoshan to you." Chen Xing nodded hard before getting on the same horse as Xiangshu. They said simple goodbyes to everyone before finally leaving. "This is only a dream," Xiangshu reminded him. "You don't have to mind the people here too much, they're just what your mind came up with." Chen Xing kept having a hunch that something was different, as if Xian and even the others were also real, living people. What's going to happen next? Xiangshu, shaking his head in confusion, then looped his arms around the waist of Chen Xing sitting in front of him, spurred the horse, and headed to the Fei River's battlefront. When he turned around, Chen Xing just saw a fuzzy scene at the end of the mountains that seemed to be the boundary of the dream realm. "Were it not for that misstep I made that day," Xiangshu said, "I wouldn't have left you." The wind blew past the Soul Mount galloping across the plain. Chen Xing slightly turned his head and asked, "You didn't want to leave in the first place, did you?" Xiangshu didn't answer and only kissed the side of Chen Xing's face, but Chen Xing understood. When he had parted ways with him on that day, Xiangshu's mind must have been filled with many complicated thoughts. Xiangshu had been reluctant to be separated from him then. They could have not parted ways in Shaoyang and gone to confront the danger together. Had Chen Xing not let go of his hands that moment when he had hugged him, had Chen Xing not said the things he had said back then, had Xiangshu chosen to face Chu and met death together with Chen Xing, the Dinghai pearl wouldn't have been shattered to pieces, and time wouldn't have gone back to 3 years ago. "Try your heart lamp," Xiangshu told Chen Xing. Chen Xing activated the heart lamp to illuminate the dark road in front of them. Still, they were unable to distinguish the long, night road ahead as the light of the heart lamp was extremely faint in the silence of all magic, resembling that of a lantern that could be extinguished at any time by the wind and rain. Huanmo Palace rose from underground amidst the battlefield on Fei River in the distance. The huge heart burst into brilliant purple light as both the heaven and earth veins began to converge, while blood from the slaughter was everywhere. It looked similar to a soundless scenery inside a dream. Murong Chong. Chen Xing discovered another mount riding against the current. Look ahead. Xiang Shu said. Too many enemies. Don't mind him. Wearing military attire and holding a pike in his hand, Murong Chong was pursing his lips, his whole face smeared with blood. He went all out to behead the enemy troops blocking his ways, be it the Dis, the Hans, the Xiongnas, and even clansmen of the same Xianbei race. It was as if Azura had descended to the battlefield. With the Akala blade in his hand, Xiang Shu bolted out from the other side of the battlefield, creating a breach in the process. Thousands of troops, controlled by the lingering Black Qi, were rushing toward them as Chen Xing tried his best to light up the heart lamp in his hands. Xiang Shu, one hand holding the reins with the other swinging the sword, unceasingly moved to approach Huanmo Palace's central altar amidst all the fighting. With all magic currently gone, Xiang Shu asked as he chopped off the advancing enemy soldier, "Will it consume your soul?" No. Chen Xing discovered that the heart lamp seemed to be guided by his heart in this dream. Although the light was by no means comparable to the brilliance it emitted after the revival of all magic, it hadn't harmed his heart veins yet. Look. Chen Xing raised his head and suddenly saw a man on the altar. Fu Jian. Fu Jian was standing in front of that immense heart, both eyes shining bright red. Both of you are, finally here. Chu's voice slowly resounded, heart lamp, Dinghai pearl. Chen Xing, what now? Don't listen to his nonsense, Xiang Shu shouted. Give all of the heart lamp's power to me. Like what you had once planned. Chen Xing was startled at once. He recalled that a long time ago when they still had lacked any other countermeasures to face this problem, his idea indeed had been to burn up the heart lamp and fight all out once they reached the final battlefield. Do it! Xiang Shu shouted. The galloping horse rammed into the enemies blocking their way, opening up a path. Xiang Shu stepped on the stirrup, his left hand embracing Chen Xing and right hand holding the Akala blade across, and shouted, "Follow me." Chen Xing activated the heart lamp. In an instant, the brilliance surrounding the two men intensified before exploding under the altar. Xiang Shu's clothes transformed into the protector martial god attire, its front fluttering in the wind. He vaulted to the altar holding the Akala blade in his right hand and Chen Xing's hand in his left. The lingering black qi released by the heart of the devil transformed Fu Jian just like how it had been with Xiang Shu. It was just, no heart lamp seed had been planted by Chen Xing in the depths of Fu Jian's heart. Xiang Shu borrowed the light of the heart lamp, causing the 9 runes on the blade to light up, and pierced it through Fu Jian's chest. Gu has already become heaven and earth. Shu's mad roar sounded. Your ignorance is truly at its peak. It's a vain attempt to use the sword in your hand to stir the heaven and earth veins. Xiang Shu had the sword run through Fu Jian already, but Fu Jian still opened his mouth and laughed in an arrogant manner as he raised his hands to grip the sword's blade. After arriving behind Xiang Shu, Chen Xing shouted, "Destroy him." Chen Xing, pressing Xiang Shu's back, exerted all of his strength to release the heart lamp's power. The heart lamp passed through Xiang Shu's body in a split second, its power pouring into the Akala blade. Behind Fu Jian was the crazily pulsing Chu, who started to fight over control of the Akala blade against Xiang Shu. The devil qi passing through Fu Jian's body attacked the Akala blade, while the heart lamp pouring through Xiang Shu began to purify Fu Jian's body. Xiang Shu and Fu Jian, 2 rulers of the divine land, appeared to be shouldering their own destiny as they exhausted up all of their strength fighting in the middle of the altar, while standing behind them was the wielder of the heart lamp, Chen Xing, and the accumulator of devil qi, Shu. However, Shu's power was far too strong, as the devil god, currently linked to the world's veins, was gathering resentment from millions of dead people on the Fei River. The light of the heart lamp appeared so faint in comparison amidst this hurricane of devil qi. Xiangshu! Chen Xing yelled anxiously. He saw that the devil qi had already corroded the Akala blade and was creeping towards Xiangshu's body. It had dyed his snow-white martial attire pitch black, the gilded armor was covered in devil qi, barbed thorns sprouting all over it. When Xiangshu desperately drew out the power of Chen Xing's heart lamp, although he didn't go as far as vomiting blood, Chen Xing already felt that he was burning his mortal and immortal souls as the price, and even then, the heart lamp's brilliance was becoming dimmer and dimmer. I'm going to die. That sort of thought suddenly occurred to Chen Xing at that moment. And then, giving up on the idea of returning alive, Chen Xing stepped forward and suddenly hugged Xiangshu's waist from behind. The barbed thorns sprouting all over Xiangshu's armor pierced through Chen Xing's body the next moment, blood splattering everywhere. Seeing her, Xiangshu was choked with emotion. Chen Xing, already turning into an embodiment of light, said softly, "Xiangshu." Blood flowed uninterrupted before the two people. The lamp burned bright for thousands of miles, its light shining as brilliant as day. An earth-shattering explosion, coming from the heart lamp, occurred right before Chen Xing took his last breath. Chen Xing had become an embodiment of light, his corporeal body was broken down, leaving only 3 Hun and 7 Po. The final light residing inside his Hun and Po was completely released following his death. It turned into a vast amount of powerful energy, which appeared like a boundless ocean amidst the silence of all magic, that once again stirred awake the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. This spiritual qi, however, came at the cost of someone's life. Xiangshu shouted frantically. Holding the sword in both hands, he pressed against Fujian, pushing him into the devil's heart. After a moment of a scuffle, the sword impaling Fujian's chest found its chance to pierce through the devil's heart. Shu's angry shout resounded, and at that moment, Chen Xing's waist pendant fell off. The cry of the phoenix gently echoed inside the powerful storm of light. Afterward, Chen Xing's body began to ignite once more, flames all over the sky gathering toward his body. Don't ever think about it. The devil's god blood was spewed out by the heart, polluting the phoenix and causing it to immediately turn around in the hope to escape the hurricane filled with corrupted blood. However, the blast of devil qi and blood struck Chen Xing, Xiangshu, and the newly resurrected Chongming with a loud bang. The world once again returned to darkness. In a moment following that, however, heaven and earth began to clear up once more. Chen Xing found himself lying in Xiangshu's embrace. The two of them, who had been sleeping on the couch of a dilapidated wooden hut, opened their eyes at the same time. Where's this? Chen Xing looked around. Xiangshu got up and pushed the door open. We failed, said Xiangshu. Shu has been resurrected. Chen Xing and Xiangshu, wearing only unlined garments, left the hut and surveyed their surroundings as they stood on a high ground. Drought fiends were everywhere on the wasteland. The smell of death filled the air, wreaking havoc throughout the divine land. The sky had turned hazy, the heaven veins disappearing. No longer did the stars shine, and no sun nor moon could be seen. Plants had withered, and the water of the creeks emitted dark qi. Right now should be a few months after the Battle of the Fei River. Through speculation, Xiangshu roughly estimated how the event had unfolded. Had he not left Chen Xing on that day and confronted Shu together with him instead, this would have been the final outcome of things. Chongming. Chen Xing turned his head and found the phoenix. A half-rotten crimson bird was perching on one side of the thatched hut. It was none other than the phoenix that had been corroded by the devil god's blood. Reborn by the burst of spiritual power released by the heart lamp, it had reshaped Chen Xing's body with the power of nirvana before it was contaminated by the devil's blood. Furthermore, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was so lacking in the silence of all magic to the point it was incapable of transforming into its human form. The phoenix flapped its wings and flew with much difficulty to leave the mountains. "It wants to lead us somewhere," Xiangshu said. "Let's follow it and take a look." The two found a horse behind the village, and just like before, Xiangshu brought Chen Xing along as he followed the phoenix's guidance inside this seemingly endless dream. They left the mountain range and headed northwest. The divine land was becoming polluted, and the deterioration had begun to spread slowly in all directions with the battlefield on the banks of Fei River in its center. Chen Xing had no idea where Chu had gone to, but he was nevertheless fully occupied and couldn't go look for him. In any case, this was only a dream the Kun had seen about how the future might have been. They followed the direction where the phoenix had left, crossing over streams along the road. The surrounding scene changed once more, a boundless snowstorm sweeping across a plateau. "Have we returned to Chi Le Chuan?" asked Chen Xing. "No," Xiangshu answered. "This isn't Siwai." An unbroken chain of mountain ranges was supporting this plateau on the upper reaches of the Yellow River. Flowing through 9 regions, the river resembled that of a coiled huge dragon. "Voyage," Xiangshu said as he identified the terrain. "It used to be the home of the Qiang people." Chen Xing vaguely recalled a legend he had once read on an ancient scroll. On that plateau was a lone, isolated temple built with its back against the mountain and its front facing the vast central plains in the east. The phoenix flew toward the temple and entered through the hatchway. "Voyage," Chen Xing repeated. "If I remember correctly, this place should be." When the two of them arrived in front of the temple, they saw 9 peculiar runes engraved on the door. They looked exactly the same as the ones inscribed on the Akala blade. "Hall of 10,000 Yaos," Chen Xing murmured. "Xiangshu, you've been here before." "I have read about it in a document," Chen Xing replied. "Open the door and let's take a look." "Chongming led us to this place, there must be something he wants to say." Xiangshu raised his hand and pushed the door open with Chen Xing injecting the heart lamp in to help him. A bright light shone, and the entrance slowly opened, revealing the magnificent hall behind it. The sky, a sphere, the earth, a square, the vault was in an arch, with every side of the temple ending in a wall. There were also untold numbers of shrines made of rock, each of them engraved with the realistic sculpture of a Yaogwai. In the center of the temple, one on the left and one on the right, were 2 statues of gods. Standing on the left was Akalanatha, overlooking the vacant space in front of him, 6 hands each holding magical regalia, while on the right was Dipankara with the heart lamp in his hands. At this moment, a green glow appeared on the altar in the center of the temple. Xiangshu frowned. "What is this place?" "3 realms, the 6 paths, immortals, a god," Chen Xing raised his head and said, "and Buddha, as well as 10,000 Yaos. This is where the seed of Mara is stored," a man's voice sounded, "and also the place that seals me." Chen Xing. Xiangshu, who immediately moved in front of Chen Xing to protect him, only saw that green light turn into a man with an absolutely beautiful face. The man's upper body was bare, and he was only wearing a martial skirt woven by peacock plumes around his waist. The phoenix lay down in the man's lap. "You are?" Chen Xing knitted his brows. "The keeper of one of Shu's 3 hun, that is, the devil seed," the man said in a deep voice, "and the watcher of the hall of 10,000 Yaos. You can call me Kongxian." Recalling the ancient records he had read, Chen Xing slowly said, "Dipankara and Akala sealed the devil seed inside Voyage's hall of 10,000 Yaos. The devil seed, born in the world every 1,000 years, will absorb resentment that has condensed on earth for a millennium and be reincarnated as Mara. And so, the exorcists on earth use the Akala blade to get rid of demons and with it, eliminate Mara, thus postponing the reincarnation for another 1,000 years. "Not bad," Kongxian responded. "It's one of the hun of Mara, which in turn, is Chu's 3 hun and 7 po." Looking at Kongxian, Chen Xing had a premonition that they might be getting closer to a certain truth. Xiang Shu unsheathed the Akala blade and handed it over to Kongxian, who nodded after only looking at it. Correct, this is it. He then gently pressed the light produced by his finger on the Chick Chongming's body. This is a dream. Xiang Shu walked over to one side and sat down before the Akala blade. In our waking time, the Akala blade has already been lost to us. Shu has refined it into the devil spear. I know this is a dream realm, Kongxian said. I've been waiting in this place for a very long time, about 300 years. Shu has been looking for me ever since the start of the silence of all magic. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu's expression also changed. He said, voice low, you're not a person from the dream. The disappearance of all mana, explained Kongxian, also means that the seal on the Hall of 10,000 Yaos loses its effectiveness. Shu wants to be completely reborn, and he is bound to look for my whereabouts to get back his ability to destroy the world. Since I had nowhere to hide, I had no alternative but to hide inside the dream realm. Chen Xing opened his mouth slightly. Xiang Shu frowned. Why? Kongxian, we have to start from the very beginning. Shu raised an army to attack Xuanyuanxi, but was defeated. Xuanyuanxi then separated the forefather of Mara into 7 parts sealed all over the divine land. Chen Xing had heard the story on more than one occasion. He moved in front of Xiang Shu and fixed his gaze at Kongxian, who was sitting on the altar. Kongxian absent-mindedly continued, Shu's 3 Hun, heaven, earth, and human Hun, were also separated. The heaven Hun roamed the world looking for an opportunity to be resurrected, while the earth Hun infiltrated the earth seeking for a host. The human Hun, which had transformed into the seed of Mara, was handed down to me to watch over. Chen Xing was astonished. No wonder that across history, whenever Mara was born, although none went by Chu's name nor remembered who they were, they had such an intense hatred toward the human world. Xiang Shu still frowned. Why won't his 3 Hun be purified and carried away by the world's veins? The devil god's blood. It's because his influence has taken root deep within this land, Kongxian said easily. He has managed to preserve himself through all living beings on the divine land and has received the capability to fight against both heaven and earth veins. And while endless wars make all living beings slaughter one another, it also functions as a great force for the old to go and the new to come, for them to continuously move forward. Still, do not ever let him find the 3rd Hun. Kongxian placed the phoenix in Akala's hands before turning around to take a look at the 2 men. If all of his 3 Hun and 7 Po gather together, Shu will be fully resurrected, and nobody will be able to subdue him. Chen Xing gasped hard. Xiang Shu, after pondering for a while, then said, I need to reforge the Akala blade, or this guy would really be too difficult to deal with. Kongxian fell into thoughts. He said a moment later, the Akala blade. Akalanatha and Dipankara cast it with the bronze left behind by Xuanyuanxi on the Shao mountain, and it also requires 6 primordial lights of the world, sunlight, moonbeam, starlight, lightning flash, blaze of flame, and luster of bone. However, we also need the world's 7th light in order to completely destroy Shu. Chen Xing suddenly understood the moment he heard this. So, this is why Xiang Shu always seemed like he had been hiding something from me throughout this journey. The heart lamp, Chen Xing's voice trembled. Correct, Kongxian affirmed. That is, your Hun and Po. Chen Xing looked at Xiang Shu, who in the end admitted it and replied, but I won't let Chen Xing die. By all means, never. Kongxian thought for a while. Even if you had been willing, there's no opportunity now. The Akala blade has been refined, and even if you had an incantation to summon Zuyan in your hands, you have no more regalias. There must be a way. Said Xiang Shu, voice deep. Upiter wouldn't have added this variable for us otherwise. It looked as if they had once again come into a dead end. But after a moment, a peculiar idea suddenly came about in Chen Xing's mind. Wait, Xiangshu, I have a question. The sword is the regalia, while the 7 lights of the word are the dao attached to the sword. Kongxian agreed, correct. The moment the devil seed is about to be born, the heart lamp will subsequently appear. Accompanied by the heir to the Akala blade, they are to use these 7 lights to eliminate Mara. Only, the trickiest thing this time around is that you have met Shu's real body. Chen Xing held Xiangshu's hand and said, let's not think about the real future and focus on the past for now. As in, 3 years have passed at the moment, and this is the final year. Kongxian hummed. Chen Xing asked, puzzled, so, if things had gone according to their original course, if Xiangshu hadn't turned back time, if everything hadn't been reset to the very beginning, if things had become like it is today in this dream, what would have we done then? Kongxian left the altar and aimed his hand toward the temple entrance. The huge stone door slowly opened, revealing the bottomless ravine outside. Light wandered into the hall of 10,000 yaos, and the statues inside the shrines flew out in succession and circled around the ravine. You would have cast the heart lamp's power into the sword after arriving here in the future, Kongxian said quietly. Blue flames appeared and began to swirl around the ravine. A sword-casting platform emerged, stone steps rose from the depth of the abyss along with it, connecting the temple and the platform. The statues of Yaogwei filling the sky brightly shone, as if bearing witness to a kind of never-before-seen ceremony. Kongxian said. This is the place where Akalanatha and Dipankara cast the sword. Holding hands, Xiangshu and Chen Xing stood before the stone steps, not saying anything for a moment. Xiangshu unsheathed the Akala blade and carefully looked over the divine weapon that had been handed down for generations while thinking in his heart, all things considered, it's both the past and the future. Chen Xing, do you still remember what the current world's Chongming had said? Was there anything else other than do you need help? Xiangshu turned around, wanting to lead Chen Xing to leave. Chen Xing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said that destiny and the world's veins are able to correct themselves. It can make everything return to its preordained trajectory before you know it. Xiangshu's face was full of hostility, he refused to even think about it. Chen Xing, however, turned around and hugged him as the 2 men stood before the bottomless cliff. Chen Xing looked up and looked at Xiangshu. Let me see what kind of path we could have taken, okay. He then took the Akala blade in Xiangshu's hand and hugged it in a similar manner to holding a chain. Xiangshu's eyes opened wide. After turning around and smiling at Xiangshu, Chen Xing turned back and continued to walk to that altar at the ends of the steps, indigo blue fire surrounding it. End chapter.